Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Breakthrough Blueprint, where we talk to entrepreneurs about how they became successful today. And I have with me my amazing friend Mark, and I'll hand it over to him to introduce himself.
Mel, thank you. I appreciate you. I love doing this. This is our second one. My name is Marc Anthony Longwith. I own Evolved Entrepreneur, and we turned founders into leaders. And it could be anything from their operations, but most of the time, they are the bottleneck. So we're working with them on the personal development level.
Well, how did you get started? Because I know that you've worked in a bunch of different industries before what you're doing now.
In the coaching industry as a whole, or what I'm doing in this exact moment.
In the coaching industry as a whole.
So I was in the food and beverage business for years. I was a sommelier in Vegas, and I opened up a brew pub with four of my buddies. Amazing and terrible idea all at the same time because it was the coolest experience of my life, to be honest with you. Like, we would brew out of my garage. We looked like Breaking Bad. It was crazy. And we did that for 4 years, and we're like best friends. And we built something from scratch, which was really cool. And we had a brick and mortar, and, brew pubs were really cool in general. But back in 2012, 13, I mean, they were like the thing. So it was like a cool culture around it. But long story short, these guys were all restaurant guys, and they just didn't have that entrepreneurial drive. And so I was like, I can't do this. I just don't align with these guys. And what I did is I hired a coach out of the South Bay, basically, I think like Hermosa, Redondo Beach area. And we're working together. And he's like, "What do you want?" I was like, "Well, I want to make a lot of money and I want to help a lot of people." And he was like, "Well, have you ever thought about, making a lot of money by helping a lot of people?" I'm like, "Well, no, not really." And he's like, "Well, tell me what you did this week." And I was like, "Well, I helped one friend who was a woman with a nutrition program. I helped another buddy with a workout program. I filed a trademark for one friend. I filed an LLC for another." He's like, "Do you realize that that's all like kind of coaching and you could do that for a living?" And I was like, "Really? No way." And immediately I started a business from scratch, called it Business Jiu-Jitsu. Horrible name. It's kind of cool though. It was like a necktie that was like a black belt. It was really cool, but kind of corny. And I was like, well, who can I help? And I had gone from corporate restaurant to entrepreneurship. So a buddy of mine, Akira back, needed some help. He's a big Korean chef. If you know who he is, he's huge. So I started helping him a little bit, and he saw what I was doing, and he introduced me to a guy named Ho Chi Boon, which is a Michelin star chef as well in both Asia and the US at the same time for the Hakkasan Group. And I helped him go from Hakkasan Group corporate chef after 15 plus years to his own restaurant in San Francisco. And that was kind of how it all kicked off.
Wow, I love that. So then what sort of like training or experiences do you have to that like informed the way that you do your coaching?
So it's really interesting. I have no formal training whatsoever, but what was cool was Wei was the name of the guys that coached me. He's a Wei Hong. He's a Chinese guy, and he kind of walked me through the coaching. So really, our 4 month engagement was just him teaching me how to coach. Like, here's how you run a Trello board. Here's how you talk to the guys, and I just had the courage to do it. Like, my first engagement, I think, was 18,000, and then my second real life coaching client was 5 grand a month. And I worked with a baseball player from the Dodgers. And so it kind of all spanned from just learning directly from him, but also just having this deep, intuitive, genuine, you know me well enough to know I just care about people. And so I really can say, like, it's not fair. I have a gift. Like, some of us are just built differently. Like, we could run faster. I can just connect with people and hold space in ways that other people can't. So I had a gift for it. And it was just, I had a guy last night, I was in a mastermind, and he came up to me afterwards because I run the show when I'm in there like a whole time and like talk to everybody. He's like, "You can tell that what you're doing is exactly what you're meant to do." And I wasn't coaching anybody. I was just giving advice. And long story short, I just think like it's just what I was designed to do. And then just to give you background, I mean, I was a coach for years for fighters. I started out training when I was 12, and I fought professionally and coached other fighters. But there's just that genuine care to want to see somebody succeed, to have a charismatic ability to motivate them, and then this weird God-given intuition to hold space and have discernment.
Definitely. And just because I do know you so well and I know so many of the challenges that you faced in your personal life, professional life, like just all of the adventures and side quests you've had all over the world, like those certainly, I'm sure, inform your ability to be empathetic and to really understand people. Because at the end of the day, we're all pretty much dealing with very similar things. And I'm sure you see that with your friends and your clients.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, and I appreciate you mentioning it because I have grown up in an extremely different way than most people. I came from a very criminal background. My sisters, cousins, uncles, all criminals, grandfather criminal. My mother was married 7 times. I had some rough upbringing, and I struggled very, very hard. And I have had a lot of losses just last year. I lost my father at the same time I lost my partner at the time, my girlfriend, and I lost my business all within months. And you learn to be very humble. And you're talking to a guy that, I mean, I do have an ego, right? I mean, people see me and it definitely like I have a confidence in me, but it's a grounded confidence because I've just been knocked down so many times. I wonder if God's like, all right, we're gonna wipe that ego off the floor. We're just gonna keep knocking you down and knocking you down until you humble up, bro. But I will tell you is, I was pretty frozen last year, and to the point where I was actually getting out of bed felt like impossible. Writing an email, as my joke is, felt like I was trying to negotiate peace between Palestine and Israel. Like I just was frozen. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't make any money. And somehow, whatever you believe in, God, universe brought me clients. You were a part of that as well. Thank you. Because I just couldn't work. And so you really start to gain this empathy towards other humans, before it's like, oh, just suck it up and let's go. And, I'm one of those bros, but like some people are really struggling. And I think when you can really understand somebody from a deep perspective, because you've experienced it, it gives you an edge. I think that's an issue I have. I don't want to call out any younger coaches, but you get, life coaches with, they've been out of their mom's house for 2 years. You're like, what experience do you really have? I think they have value, but to really understand the depth of life, I think you have to be crushed and built back. And I think I've been crushed and built back so many times that I used to pray to be unshakable. And I'm like, fuck, I do not want to say that prayer anymore. Because now it's like, I could have $0 in the bank account, walk into room with Jeff Bezos and just sell the whole team on something and be like, yeah, I know who I am. And it gives you a strength that I don't think you can get anywhere else. But I'm not going to lie to you. It's not for the faint of heart to have the depth and strength and core that I do. I had to break to nothing and have no core and be like a little mush inside of a cocoon, maybe turning into a butterfly one day. But during that time, I was just a disaster.
I completely understand. And I can relate on certain levels of, feeling abandoned or feeling like you have to start over, feeling tons of loss, whether, back when I was younger at different points of your life. But it's like your name, the evolved entrepreneur, it's like that evolution. It requires you can't have the good without feeling the bad. You won't appreciate it if you've never felt that suffering and hardship and absolutely like not sure if you can continue to go on any longer. And it's that adversity that pushes you to the next level. And I certainly experienced that last year too. When I felt like I was pretty much hit rock bottom emotionally and psychologically, that's when the transformation happened. And that's why, I have this momentum today is because I had that hardship. And so it's
Totally.
great to connect with people that way.
You remind me of a poem by Khalil Gibran, and it's called Of Joy and Sorrow. And basically, what it says is that your ability to experience joy is in direct correlation to how much suffering you've experienced. Because it kind of, he way he describes is like carving out a vase, and the vase is kind of, it's not hollow, but as you dig and rip it apart, it becomes hollow and it can be full now. And it reminds me of Brené Brown as well. I think she's the one that said, I could be wrong, it might have been somebody else, but just that idea of if you push away all the bad emotions, you are equally pushing away your ability to experience the most high level emotions of joy, because experience emotion is universal, sadness or not. And so I really think it's important, especially for men. I'm sure women too, but I think men shut down a little more. I think women are a little more emotionally intelligent than men. But all of us, I take that back. It's important for all of us to process and feel our emotions and not to wallow in them and ruminate forever, but to process and feel them, because so you can be a whole being. I think it's really important. And I think, it's something I'm really trying to preach in my community and with my people is, I was a professional fighter. I've been to jail. I've done a lot of criminal stuff. I'm buff. I'm all of these things that are super manly. I got a beard, smoke cigars, shoot guns, but it's a good way to, I think people can see me and relate that wouldn't relate to maybe somebody else that didn't look like them, and give them permission to sometimes collapse, to accept the fact that as awesome and strong as we are as men, we're still human. And I knew we were going to get into this, but women have this uncanny, like just unbelievable capacity to produce a feminine energy that men just literally would just melt. It can be used for manipulation and control, like all the red pill shit you see out there, but it also can be the most recharging, energizing thing in the world. And I think that a woman to a man is like his muse, and he would die for her and build for her. And unfortunately, as me and you have experienced in the dating world recently, it's not every man and woman out there that possesses this quality. We would like there to be, but we have struggled, both you and I, to discover the divine feminine and masculine in people. But I really think it's, yeah, I think it's one of the most beautiful things in the world. And I just want people on this podcast to know that as bitter and as angry as I can be going through many multiple failed relationships where I've been completely abandoned at the worst times, there's nothing more beautiful than the synergy of a man and a woman together. I know we just went off on a tangent, but I mean, I think it's just, and I think that there's this lie that we're different. We're not, we are literally designed to be a puzzle piece, not different, a puzzle piece. And I think that that's where the world gets it all wrong. So
Yeah, definitely. And you and I talk about this all the time is like we're built for connection. Like what I do is like I mostly partner with men. Like I love women, but most of the time it's like because we have complementary skills and they can get into rooms and conversations that I can't. And it's just we work so much better as a team. I love partnering with strong, secure men. And to go back to your earlier point, like surrounding the people who are closest to me are also people who have dealt with adversity. So because we can understand each other and we can see the depths and we can really connect and support each other in the ways that we need because we understand what it's like to feel those heavy emotions and what that person might need when they're feeling down.
I agree completely. And just to add to that, I think that, when you've done the amount of personal development work, the amount of like grit and grind, you going through it, Naval Academy, me going through the things I went through, you just done more than the average human and you just don't relate to the average human. And I used to try to be nice and be like, all diversity and inclusion. And I'm like, I just don't agree with that anymore. I love Kobe Bryant had said, he goes, I don't understand lazy people and I don't want to. And something I've experienced recently that's been and I'll be vulnerable here, it's been a challenge for me because I have this really big heart to help everybody. And I used to watch a friend of mine and I felt like he was kind of cold sometimes. But I watch him now and I understand that he's very mindful of the energy that spreads to him. So something I've learned is to have a big boundary of like, there's some people out there I want to help, but I get around them. Like, I don't want to be around your energy because I'm going to absorb this garbage. And no matter how much I try to help you, you're dragging me down. I'm not lifting you up. So I've been very mindful of just the company that I keep and the people I'm around. And I think, like you said earlier, like, you're surrounding yourself with these people that understand adversity. They get you. Like you could be, it's like trying to explain, I mean, unless you have a genius, but it's like trying to explain the algebra to a 5-year-old. Like you are just wasting your time. And then you're arguing with the 5-year-old because they don't get it. And I think I'll end with this. You will solve the majority of your problems in life simply by raising your standards and sticking to them. And I'll just give you this last caveat. It's really hard to stick to your standards when you're emotionally wounded inside because we want connection so bad, we're willing to make sacrifices we shouldn't make.
Yes, there's so many I have to say response. It's like, people can only meet you as deeply as they've met themselves. And a lot of people can't or don't want to go that deep with themselves. So, you know, but also at the same time, in terms of what you're talking about, protecting your energy and protecting you from other people's energy, boundaries is something that I've been working on because as a recovering people pleaser and women especially are raised to just be nice, to smile, just, be agreeable to people and to society. But I realized over time as I've gotten older is like I just don't care as much what people think. Like there's always going to be haters and cyber bullies and people talking shit. But at the end of the day, it's like I don't owe you anything. And as I've carried that forward, especially this year, that's something super important to me because I have to say no more. I don't take networking calls unless you're already my friend or if we've been introduced through a friend or it's going to be mutually beneficial and not in a transactional way. But if you can't do anything for me. Like I've given out so much free game. I've given out so much, and I'm sure you have too. But at a certain point, if we're giving and giving and giving away, we're not going to have anything left for ourselves. So I know in the sense of protecting ourselves, our mindset, our energy for the multitude of tasks and meetings and calls and things that we have to do and the content that we have to create, we have to protect ourselves. And so I don't feel as guilty now about saying, I'm sorry, but I can't. But if you want to send me a voice note, I'm happy to respond when I get a chance.
I'll touch on that because I think one, I just want to commend you for such a beautiful transition in your growth because the reality of that is that's a story that you were told your whole life that you have to be the sweet girl. You have to be nice. You have to do these things. And there's a woman that was in the mastermind last night and she is struggling with the very thing of like, well, when someone comes up to me and says I'm beautiful, like I feel all like bad because there's two other girls next to me. Or when I don't want to post something on social media because there's kids starving over here in Palestine right now. And I'm like, that's such an interesting story. And that story is stay small. And so I called her out and I said, I want to call you out because you have an ability to make money, gain influence, and help all those people way, way, way higher than you are right now. It's probably not the best analogy, but or best wording, but you're being selfish because you don't want to be seen. And so there's such an interesting piece. There's one piece of you just learning how to have a boundary, learning to step up to the plate for yourself. But there's also the thing of like, what are you, who is suffering by you not being the best version of yourself? How many clients need your service? How many people need to listen to you on a podcast and change their life from one simple, like something I can guarantee you this conversation will change somebody's life that we're having right now. And I think that what I learned is like by playing small, I'm not really representative of the human that I want to be. So that's another way to just to turn it around and just why would you not go out there and be everything you can be, you know?
Definitely. And when you've been blessed with a gift and talent and you've honed those skills and everything that you are, it's your responsibility to share that with people that haven't had those opportunities, that don't have those role models. But that's how I look at it now because, yes, there's always going to be haters. But when you stick to your North Star and your ethos and know that what you're doing is for the greater good, that's why I stay motivated to put out the content and to have these podcasts and to constantly be seeking out better or like, guests more and more guests that I can have that I'll learn from, and I know other people will learn from as a result of me doing the editing and getting them booked and putting it on my Instagram and YouTube. And it's work, but I know that it's only going to serve everyone, including myself.
Totally. And I see a lot of it around in the industry around charging, right? Like people just feel bad. I was like, you wouldn't work for free. Like you wouldn't go to a job to Microsoft and work for free. And I think people are just learning to step into that power. And I just want to touch on something, I think is really powerful is you literally have a responsibility and you will change lives just by being the best version of yourself. And I look back at the younger version of myself, like I wish I had a me. Sometimes even now, I wish I could find a me to coach me. And, just to tell a quick little excerpt story is my goal at 14 years old, like my number one dream in life was to go to the penitentiary. And people hear that and like, what? And if you understood my upbringing and who was my influences, you would understand why. But if I could talk to that young boy and give him a model that really aligned, and I think there's a lot of models out there that I will say it, like I don't really agree exactly with everything Andrew Tate says. I don't agree with a lot of things that Jake Paul, some of the popular guys out there that are really big. And these are big guys. And I just think that they lack an integrity and a character. And I just think that if we could influence this younger generation from everything we've learned, like these kids need us. I mean, I even talked to some of the boomers who are just one generation above me. And I'm like, y'all are flourishing. And you're just like, yep, I'm just going to flourish in my castle. I'm like, do you know how many young people don't have any of the opportunity you had? And you're just not going to do anything about that? So, yeah.
Definitely. I think, having that abundance mindset and generosity and balancing that with the boundaries and the standards, I think finding that sweet spot and that reconciliation is really important. I think both of you and I have gotten really good at that. And you and I are both in this parallel point in our lives where I wouldn't say starting over, but starting fresh, right? We have a clean slate. We could do whatever we want, but at the same time, we have history and we have accolades and accomplishments that we can use to show people who we are and to give us credibility. But I'm excited for this new chapter because I have so much more hope now because there are more voices and leaders like you who are able to appeal to the bros and to the masculine guys who don't want to let their guard down, maybe in front of other people or front of women, but with you and in a men's circle or whatnot. It's incredibly important, I think, that we talk about mental health. And I talk about that a lot on my podcast, especially because the suicide rate is so high for men specifically. But I think a lot of it is because people don't feel safe to open up or they don't know how to talk about their feelings and emotions. They don't have the tools to express themselves in a way. So they just bottle it up until it's too late.
Yeah, and I think that just the world's just different. Like we're
Mhm.
just operating from a completely different paradigm. Men don't have as much usefulness as they used to. We're not going to war. We don't use as many manual jobs. The family unit's broken up a little bit. Women have a lot more options and they're exercising those options. And so, as we all elevate, we need to elevate as a unit. I mean, women are graduating at 2-to-1 rates, and there's multiple theories on that. And I'm not going to get into that because some are pro women, some are pro men. But the reality is, that is a fact, though. Those are the numbers. And so what you realize is like men need to find some purpose beyond what we used to find in the past. And so you're seeing these evolved couples. No, don't get me wrong. I feel like, well, if there was a war absolutely, if there was a war, women would fall into a different place. I really believe that men would probably go to the front lines. women would do some things and protect, but we're not in that place right now. So if we're going to keep evolving as a community, you're going to see more couples that are sharing resources, and you're going to see less maybe women at home or maybe some men at home. And I think that there's certain things we all have to adhere to that are best for the family unit. But at the end of the day, I think that we as a whole need to level up. And I just think, it's funny because me and you joke all the time because like I come to you with all the complaints on my end about women, and you're like, and you come to me with your complaints, and it's like literally we're dating the same person, different sex. And it's like, and it's just, I really think this raise women up, raise men up, I think is beautiful. And I think we need our own safe spaces. But I really think the future angle should be how do we come together and uplift each other? Because we're literally like this synergistic piece. It's like peanut butter and jelly. I know it sounds so corny, but like I don't just want a peanut butter sandwich. I don't just want a jelly sandwich. I want this thing that's meant to be designed to work together as a unit. So
Definitely. And as, women's abilities and careers and educational opportunities have evolved, we have to evolve in terms of men and women's
totally.
dynamic. Or else if both groups try to stay the same or men try to stay the same while women continue to evolve, there aren't going to be any more babies born at a certain point, right? So and I think that's totally fine. I think redefining what a partnership is or how that looks financially, socially, domestically, taking care of children, all of those things have changed so much dramatically now, especially because women can freeze their eggs and delay having children, or you can use a surrogate and not have to take time off of work to even have a child yourself as a woman. I know women who are supporting their partners and husbands because they're out of work or what, there's just so many different things now that are happening now that weren't as common in the past, but that's totally okay. And I think being able to have that open conversation as a society that's not so adversarial, like so many of these influencers that we see that are very polarizing in order to get the clicks and it's the clickbait. But at the end of the day, we need to have more of an open conversation that's more friendly and collaborative, or we're not going to get anywhere.
And just to add my 2 cents on that, we need to talk to the outliers. Like, sure, the 80, 90% of the people that are just not really the best human beings on the planet, like, we're not looking to them for the future. Like, you'll see these podcasts like Fresh and Fit or whatever, and you got like, I'm like, where did you pull these girls from? You just grab them off the street from like an OnlyFans webcam house somewhere in the corner. Like you're just interviewing like you know what I mean? You're just not, these are not like the pinnacle of society. Like, let's talk to well educated, healthy, solid mindset, emotionally mature individuals that are working together as units to build families. And I think that there's a lot of them out there, but I don't think that they get clicks. I don't think that they polarize. And the reality is, all that's not working, obviously. Thanks for pointing it out. But what is working? Like, what does work? And I think, as we know with marketing, the pain is the number one piece. Like, I was a marketing expert for years. That's what I taught for 3 years. You always lead with the pain because it's what gets people moving and motivated. But in this situation, like, let's look at like what the positive outcome could be in people that are actually getting shit done and doing it. And yeah, I can't say enough about also just, man, I don't agree with a lot of the stuff on the left. I'll just be honest, but I follow people on the left because I want to get a range of opinions and views, and I want to understand my fellow man and woman. We don't have to agree on everything. I think that's the one thing that changed about America. When I say that, I mean the United States, is we used to be so different, but we could just get along. We could coexist. And now it's like everyone's at each other's throat because it's like you have a different baseball team or you have a different president you like. It's like, Jesus, like we're human beings. We don't have to agree all the time. And yeah, you're going to have your clique and your people. But anyway, I could go on and on about that.
Completely agree. And I know that with how media has changed, how social media has increased, that has contributed to why people are so polarized. When I was young and I grew up in a very Republican family and my dad worked for the Bush administration, you could talk to people from opposite sides of, political spectrum and it was totally fine. But now it's like, oh, well, I can't be your friend if you're a Republican. I can't be your friend if you're a Democrat. I'm like, well, why can't we just instead unite around principles that we agree on? Can we agree on people shouldn't starve? I don't know. I think that's a great principle. Can we agree on pedophilia is bad? I think that's something that we can agree on. And as we can see right now, it's both sides of political lines that are doing things that are illegal and morally wrong. So I hope that things can change in the future and we can just unite against things that we can agree are just right and wrong. That's my hope. But
Good luck. I hope you're right. It's my hope as well. And I think, having friends from diverse perspectives. I mean, I've got like gun toting special operator, super hyper right wing Christian friends. And I've got, one of my best friends in Vegas, him and his brother are gay and they're super left wing. And what I've realized is just watching both of these people per se, our groups, is they almost want the same exact things and they're more alike than they think. They want to pay less taxes. They want to like be loved by their family. They want to take vacations. They want to enjoy the American dream. And I think we're just weaponizing each other against each other all the time. And it just didn't used to be that way. It's crazy because there's like more acceptance in some ways than, of course, maybe like during the civil rights movement. But in some ways, there's like less. Like we're really starting to isolate ourselves. And I think that the access to information should change that. But what it's done is it's been an algorithm that just speaks to whatever you want. So that's all your brain gets fed. And that's all you see over and over. Like if you like hot Asian girls, that's all you're going to like. There's just hot Asian girls everywhere. There's not even any blondes in the world. They don't exist, And it's like, because that's all your feed's going to give you. And it's just like, you have to like step out of that box a little bit and just look and like even go to your friend, like, let me look at your feed. And you're like my ex, she would just have comedy and like puppies, And I've got like red pill, black pill, Andrew Tate. What's going? I don't even like a lot of that stuff, but I'm all going into conspiracy theory, and I'm like, oh, like what's? And that's just one thing I'll add too is just learning to just focus on the joy. Like I'll finish with this piece that I think is so important for everybody to know is for me, what I've learned is that like, let's just pretend the earth is flat. This is a great one. It doesn't change my life at all. Let's just pretend Epstein and Microsoft and Bill Gates and all these people, like, I don't know what, but it really doesn't change my life. So now if you're going to go out there and start protesting and build a movement, sure. I actually implore you to do that. But if you're not, you're wasting your precious life force and energy worrying about shit you cannot do anything about. So put that energy into what you can control. I have a really good friend of mine who I won't talk about some of the stuff that he was really into, but what I will say is it was definitely not feeding his soul. And just in the last month, I was like, bro, like, what's up, man? You've changed so much. He's like, I agree with all that stuff. He's like, but what's important right now is my wife and my daughter. And that's what I have control over. He's like, so I was spending so much energy worrying about shit that wasn't important. And all of it came from his social media feed. And he just stopped watching social media. And I think that helped him not focus on that negativity all the time.
Definitely. I mean, I think there's so many components and layers to what you just said. Part of it is media literacy. A lot of people don't realize and don't know how algorithms work. They don't know that it's meant to be addictive. Like especially a lot of boomers and who were radicalized on Facebook and joined QAnon and all this stuff. Like they had no idea because they just thought, you know, it's just I think it also has to do with being layered with like the lack of third spaces. Back in the day, most people went to church or they went to some group, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, whatever it was, where they could have, in-person community. And then with COVID and social media and the intentional, I think, isolation and just putting people into boxes and people also wanting to associate and belong, right? Now we have the Proud Boys. We have like these different groups where people could be proud to be a part of something bigger than themselves, but sometimes those groups can be doing things that are very damaging and violent and destructive, right? But I think that's why I'm really supportive of people now in communities like Medellin and Austin and Mexico City, where I am, where people are trying to bring people together for in-person events, whether it's around biohacking and sauna and cold plunge or just entrepreneurial networking or the one that you went to last night with Joel or where like people are helping each other in their businesses. I think we just need more live in-person events so people aren't as lonely and they can meet people from different backgrounds and exchange ideas and realize that we're all the same.
Really agree. I traveled the world for 5 years. I did it with two different girlfriends and not at the same time. and and my point is leaving my hometown, isolating myself like that. What I learned from all of it is that community is so important. So I've been down here in Medellin for almost 2 years, really trying to build community because we're just tribal creatures that want to be around other people. And the third space thing is huge. And I'll tell people this, whether you have a faith in God or not, the reality is the church was a common ground where we could all come together and congregate and have a common principle. And by the way, like it or not, that principle's a pretty good one, right? There's some pretty good ethics, values, and morals in there. So when you remove that, you remove the fabric of the ethics and values in society. You remove the likeness and the cohesion of the area. If you look at any, like the first thing they did was put a Catholic church or a Christian church or whatever it was, or even I'm sure a mosque when they go somewhere, and that's where everybody gathers. And when you've removed that from society, you've taken away, like, I think a part of its soul, and it is cool. I'll tell you this, it's great for business, like especially me building this community now, because all these people want it. Like, you're just seeing these micro communities pop up everywhere, and they're awesome. Whether it's something as big as Tony Robbins' community and Grant Cardone's or something as small as mine, people want to be with like-minded people and they're craving it. But the caveat that you just said is a lot of it's online. And we want to be, I mean, one of the main reasons I'm down here in Medellin, besides the weather, because it's the best weather in the world, is this community of people that are just, I mean, I could co work every day, all day, Monday through Sunday. I could go out every night and everyone's getting together. And most of these people to live here have remote jobs or they're entrepreneurial. So there's at least something in common. And I think that that's the beauty of just building a community around that, I mean, and you go back to the States, I struggle a bit because, these people are all working regular jobs and they can see you on the weekend or on their days off and it's just different. So
Exactly. And the way just cities are designed, it's meant for driving. It's not meant for public transportation and walking. Like in Medellin, Mexico City, one of the things I love about Colombia is cyclovia. Every Sunday, you could go walk alone and you'll run into 10, 20 people you know and meet new friends. And, there's a networking event every night. You'll run into people at SmartFit, at the gym. Like it's just a very small community and everyone's very friendly. Everyone's 1 degree of separation from another person. And that's something I love and miss about it. People genuinely want to help you. They want to be on each other's podcasts. There's like 100 WhatsApp groups in Medellin alone to connect people, and not just online, but in person to meet up. So I'm loving that more businesses are opening that are bringing people together, like the saunas in Austin too. There's more dance parties that are daytime, like Daybreaker, with no alcohol or drugs. It's literally about just having fun, being healthy. And it's crazy to see now. It's like I think I saw a report that Gen Z is like the lowest consuming of alcohol of any generation, because it's like people are realizing now that they don't need these substances or want these things that are really not great for your health in the long term, but they want to commune together around more healthy things.
I hope that they do, because one thing I will push back on that is getting together and having a few drinks does bring everybody together. And I think Gen Z doesn't do that as much, but now that they're trying to find the alternatives, I think that's a beautiful thing, because we all know, like, as much as I love alcohol, owning a brew pub, being a sommelier, food and beverage Michelin star my whole life, we all know it's just not, there's all the evidence now. It's just not good for you. There's not like one, it might be good for you on like a social aspect and like a little bit of your anxiety and enjoying a social lubrication, but it's not healthy for your body. But what it did do is bring us together. So I'm hoping that, like you said, these Gen Zers and the future populations find ways to come together. Because
Mhm.
I would say a few drinks to get together would be better than no contact. Because that's what's been scaring me, is just this lack of contact. And it's, another thing too, I'd like to get your thoughts on is just the lack of human interaction, the need to be at that level to interact and learn those skills. Screens plus social media has created an extremely ambiguous and flaky society, and I think that I'm just curious your thoughts on that, because it's frustrating as hell for me.
Definitely. And like, so I've been dating apps have been around for decades now, like 10, 20 years for some of them, are online dating sites. And there's just more research out there that the dating apps are meant to keep you on there. They're not trying to match you with people who are actually you're attracted to. They're actually trying to keep you on there so you'll pay more, and they're not going to be showing the ones that they know that you've expressed interest in. So as a result, I think that dating app culture of keep swiping and swiping, there's endless options. There's always going to be someone better. Like, so there's no sense of commitment. There's no sense of let's just stay here and work on it. Whereas like my parents' generation only, all of them, all my aunts and uncles had an arranged marriage because they're of the mindset and the culture where you just make a decision. It's not about like, well, let me actually just go to the next person because they're going to be hotter or smarter or funnier than you or richer than you or whatever. We made a decision here, and I respect that. There's something to be said about that, and the data shows that they're more successful in at least long lasting. Are they happier? Who knows? But when you make a commitment and a decision, it's kind of just like, well, fuck your feelings, because one day you might hate that person and the next day you're going to love them again.
Yeah, to just speak on that for me, I would say I think that maybe our parents' generation was a little too far on one end of the pendulum, but this younger generation is way too far on the other end. Because the reality is, like, yeah, let's not like the first crackhead off the street that says they like me, let's go get married and hit the chapel, right? No, like you want to have boundaries, standards, you want to date, you want to vet properly. But when you make that choice, no matter who you make that choice with, this is why, by the way, you should vet very well because whoever you make that choice with, you are going to fucking struggle.
Yeah.
I don't care who you are. Oh, relationships are easy if they, sure, some can flow, but you are going, first of all, I'll give you two pieces. One, it's just a challenge, right? It's just a challenge. Two is I truly believe that as energetic mirrors of each other, they are going to trigger all of your junk. That's why avoidance find anxious people. It's just like, it's very common. You'll see the two. It's like probably in the 80 to 90% where an avoidant will find an anxious. That is an opportunity for you to work on yourself. But the caveat is you need a really healthy person that will hold enough space to not manipulate and use and run and not commit so you can work together. So you can come back and like, yeah, I was an asshole. I'm really sorry about that. It's like, yeah, baby, I get it. And vice versa. And you can learn forgiveness and empathy. I think relationships are hands down. I don't know, maybe children. I haven't had those yet. But I think relationships are head down as a personal like development piece. They really are probably the hardest work we could possibly do. You know, I think it's really like relationships with an intimate partner, entrepreneurship, and children. I think those three like really press up against. I mean, what do they say? Entrepreneurship is just a personal development boot camp designed as a or masked as a business. So how much can you take? Let's see. Are you going to give up yet? Nope. Let's see if we can pile a little more on. But I think with the relationships, like, I mean, you know, my mom died at 56. My dad died at almost 90 and he was 20 years old. And who would have ever guessed that? Right. You meet somebody and they're just amazing. They have everything on paper and then they get in a car accident. Or I know that like nothing's perfect, right? But understanding that we all require patience and understand. That's the thing too about just the whole red pill movement that I don't like is like, oh, she has this many bodies and she was built this way. She's just in that category forever. And I'm like, bro, what did you do when you were coming up? Are you in that category forever? And my point in all that is just to give grace. And don't get me wrong, if hypothetically you're dating somebody who didn't learn from their mistakes and they're trying to pretend they have all those traumas, yeah, I don't want to take that shit on. But understand that like this is where I think things like faith come into play. Because one thing that, you know, at least the Christian faith talks about is just grace. And the reality is learning to hold a boundary, have a standard, and in the same breath, have grace. And that's why, like the book I'm writing, The Dichotomy of Everything, is about paradoxes. And that is the paradox. The paradox is how do you hold a high standard, solid boundary, and you do not betray yourself? And in the same breath, forgive and have grace. Because I don't think any relationship would have lasted without forgiveness and grace.
Completely agree.
At least
And
not
I
healthy.
right, I mean, everything is about balance, and it's like, yes, of course, we want to have standards, and we should have them and uphold them, but at the same time, we might have a list of all these things that we want, and maybe there's no one else on this planet that fulfills every single thing on your list. It just might happen, right? You want someone who's 6'5", makes $500,000 or more a year, is a great
In
relationship
finance,
with parents, and blue eyes, blonde hair, whatever it is, but maybe he's married already. Maybe he's not interested in you. You can have all those requirements you want, but first of all, also, what are you bringing to the table? So, at the end of the day, there's like so many components to this conversation. I know you and I have talked about all these things in the past, and we could talk for hours about all these subjects, but it's just like grace, but also being realistic. Like, do you want to be alone forever, or do you want to make concessions on a couple things that aren't as important? Maybe your non-negotiables in your top three. Okay, don't compromise on those. But other things like height, weight, I don't know. I think that a lot of people have unrealistic standards, and it's on both sides. And this body count discussion, body count goes both ways. It's not. It's the red pill community talking about these things and these double standards. Well, the issue with body count with men and women is generally based on research. If you have slept with more people, it's going to be harder for you to make an attachment, to have an emotional attachment with someone, whether you are a man or a woman. And so I think it's sad what these male influence that are just like, oh, like sleep with as many women as you want. Like they're just hoes. Like they don't mean anything to you. Well, you're fucking up your own ability to have a fulfilling relationship later in life. Cause maybe when you're in your 20s, that is fun. You want to be a player. You want to flash on Instagram and pretend you're this baller and have all your friends pat you on the back. But later, when you're in your 40s and you start balding and you have a gut and you realize, like, oh shit, I want to have kids. but your sperm is aging, first of all. So there's a much higher likelihood that those children will have genetic abnormalities. That's just a scientific fact. And by the time they get their shit together and realize, oh crap, like I need to just focus on one woman, it's going to be harder to attach emotionally. So these double standards that are meant to hurt women and to make many fragile, insecure men feel better about themselves, it's hurting everyone at the end of the day. It's hurting men too.
I agree. And I think, I don't obviously date men. You do. And I date women and I see the same thing on the other side. These unrealistic I mean, I'm in Medellin, right? You see the stuff I have to deal with. Like, you want to go on a date? Can you buy me a dress and pick me up? And it's like, what? But what I will say is, not to, because I could just totally bash on the women experience, but I won't do that. What I'll say is, as a good human being, just ask yourself, what are you bringing to the table? Because if somebody is really stepping up to the plate for you, I believe, at least from my opinion, that you should be like, wow, they're so amazing. How can I contribute? And I think when you have a good human being that really cares and they see the value of what you're bringing, they literally will look at that and go, man, like, I want to show up just as much. But what I've noticed is, and this is, I'll warn everybody in the audience to be careful of, is when you have this believable, and I saw a post the other day, it's like when you go pick out a piece of jewelry, which one do you pick out, right? So like, if you're this unbelievable energy, you got this charisma, you got your shit together, you're such a good person, you're going to attract the people that want the shiny object, and they will take everything you're willing to give them. And they will keep taking it and keep taking it because it feels good. And they haven't developed enough emotional awareness to look at you and realize that they're not contributing back. And even if they do, it doesn't mean that they're going to actually take action on it. So you have to be very mindful of how you're showing up and what boundaries you have so you don't get taken advantage of. But what I will say is this, I really believe all men and women should look at the person that they're with. If that person is absolutely amazing, I want to be with a woman that I'm like, fuck, I got to show up or I'm going to lose this absolute gem. I'm so blessed to be with her. But usually, from the history of my relationships, I have never lost anybody that I've looked back and been like, wow, except one girl. She was a doctor and she was just amazing. Besides her, I can look back at all my exes and just be like, eh. But when you have that person that's really putting in the effort, like, step up to the plate, bring more to the table, show up. And if you are the other person, watch them. And if they're not, cut that shit out of your life because you deserve someone to meet you.
Mhm.
You deserve to meet you where you're at. And I think that that's key to a relationship. And we could discuss all the ways what that means, feminine energy, financial provision, all those things. But the reality is, do you genuinely care about the person in your life and want to make their life better?
Exactly, exactly. And like you're right, like the inputs required for a relationship, time, money, resources, energy, sick labor, like emotional capacity, all these things are resources. But at the end of the day, if it's not balanced in some way, not in a way that's transactional, and uh, reciprocation is huge. And this is something that I struggled with a lot in my last relationship, is emphasizing it's not like tit for tat. It's that I am leading by example and showing you how I want to be treated, yet you're not meeting me that way or treating me the same in return. So there's an imbalance here. And at the end of the day, it became transactional and that built resentment. So it's something that I'm hyper aware of now, and I'm not trying to rush into another relationship or anything like that. But it's just, it's more about like, I'm glad I had those experiences because I had to learn those lessons. I learned lessons that, despite having previous relationships, I didn't really truly learn them before, about my own anxious attachment style and healing that, and how that affected my relationship, and how then I exhausted myself emotionally doing so much emotional labor, just feeling like, well, if I work harder, if I just do this more, it'll be fixed, and that wasn't the case.
I think you need to find someone that matches you too. And people really need to understand that, right? Like respect is such a huge factor. And whatever that means for you, like a lot of these men down here in Medellin, they're looking for the sweet little girl that's just going to stay home. She's super hot, young, maybe cook and clean, just look pretty. But I don't buy into that. I think if they're super high value men that are super driven, unless she's really bringing a lot to the table and emotional support, they're going to get bored. And so, people are like, you want another entrepreneurial woman? I'm like, absolutely. Like, I can't imagine being with anybody that doesn't have a similar drive as I do because it just wouldn't match, And not to quote the Bible, but when they say evenly yoked, if you got one ox pulling, like, let's fucking go, and the other one's just kind of like, let's sit on the couch and whatnot, you're just not going to match. And what people say, well, she's a boss, but no, I said, no, women are multifaceted, just like men are, right? Like, I can go kill somebody in the street and then go rock my daughter to sleep. Like, I mean, it's just we're humans. Women can go crush life and they can come back home and drop in the most feminine, submissive role to their husband or take care of their family. And also, what a woman can do is she can take all that energy that she's putting into building her business. She makes a personal decision that you and your husband agree upon. And then she takes all of that energy and puts it into her home. And it doesn't mean she has to do that forever. She can also do that for a certain period of time and then go back to the business. That's one thing I will say that I want people to hear is we are not boxes. We are so multifaceted, and everything you see from the women on the left over here talking about all like men this and the men on the right over here, women this, women that, those are all little boxes based on statistics. We're so nuanced as people. And if you are even looking at those boxes are for the 80%. Anybody listening to this podcast is the 20% most likely. They are trying to be better. They're trying to grow. They're trying to develop. Sure, these statistics, but that's like talking about health. Do you want to be the statistic of health in the United States? I am so far beyond that. It's not even real. I'm almost 50 years old. And so I tell people like, you're talking about statistics that hopefully I hope you don't want to relate to because you are above that. And so that's really important to me is understanding that concept, of that we're just nuanced, multifaceted, highly capable, complex beings that can be all of the things, dude. Yes, we can be all of the things.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think there's so many influencers and voices out there, like, and I see it all the time because I'm very interested in learning how other people are thinking about, talking about, and teaching these relationship dynamics. And I hear some like men's dating coaches saying, like, oh, well, women don't be too masculine and don't be a boss babe because most high value men don't like that. Whereas the research shows, based on what I've seen, is that actually high value men who are educated and successful want a partner that's on their same intellectual level. Why would you want to be with somebody that's not as educated or dumb? Makes no
She's the
sense.
mother of your children.
Makes
What do
absolutely.
you want your daughter's example to be?
Exactly. And so, yes, like there are some dynamics where the man is way older, maybe 20 or 30 years, and all he wants is a young trophy wife, and maybe that's his second wife. And that's totally fine. But in most
Totally.
dynamics, when you want a true partnership to last the long haul, 50, 60, 70 years, you need someone who's on your level, who you're experts in different things. You defer to each other's expertise at different times. Like, I want a true partner. I don't want to date down in terms of intellectual, level or career, but it just gets harder and harder as you become more successful as a man or a woman in general, because your dating pool gets smaller if your standards are higher.
I'll say this though. The reason why I think that exists is because I don't think a woman really starts to mature on average till she's probably 32 to 34. I don't think a man starts to mature on average, like truly, I'm talking about wisdom, till they're 38 to 40. And so you have people well under 40, often under 30, giving all of this advice and they have no life experience. Like I said, I'll be 47 in a couple of months. The way I view the world today and the experience I have, it matters. Like it really does matter. And when you have some 26-year-old kids spouting off about what relationships are like and how you're like, dude, what the fuck do you have any idea what you're talking about? And I think that, and also just did nothing against a young man or woman, but you just don't have the patience and compassion and empathy that comes with getting your ass kicked by life for another 20 to 30 years.
Definitely. I have so many more things to say, but I just think that, like, yeah, I think that so many of these influencers out here that are like, I want to date five girls at once, but I don't want her to date any other guy, or just like these just double standard things that are unfair. I'm like, you don't realize like you're just a sheep. You're a victim of programming and you don't even know it. You don't realize that these are all things that some influencer, some man said one time. And unfortunately, a lot of these things have been propagated for hundreds of years in different cultures, but it's, back thousands of years, we mostly lived in matriarchal societies. Most of the deities and, that we worship were goddesses. It was the church and leaders, male leaders, that wanted to take back power and change it to patriarchal societies and make God a man. And a lot of people don't know this, but when you go back and you actually look at the research, it's the manipulation of history and the manipulation of beliefs of people in power that have changed things to the way they are now, but doesn't mean that they're actually accurate and true. And based on, from Shark Tank, the most successful companies are women led. Overall, based on research, women are more successful CEOs because they take more calculated risks. there's just data across the board that isn't as widely known that women are capable of doing so much. That's why women tend to be the CEOs of the home. In most people that I know, at least, the woman manages the finances, the woman pays the bills. The man might do certain things, maybe more manual labor, maybe more, fixing things around the house. But a lot of the time, it's the woman that truly wears the pants and makes a lot of the decisions.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many opinions and views on that. But what I will say about it, I probably won't give my exact opinion on it. But what I will say is just look at this is what I tell people: look at the fruit. And what I mean by that is when I look at a human being, and they can preach this, and I look at the fruit of their life, and I deal with these guys and women, and you see that they're not truly joyful and at peace in their heart. And so when I look at a man who has decided to dedicate his life to a woman and he has a couple of kids and that's his life, I see a shining bright light in this person that's immeasurable. I see it in myself when I find a partner I want to commit to. And then I see many men out there, and I'm no saint. I grew up and born and raised in Vegas. But you look at what, I can just speak for myself. You're dating 4 or 5 women, you're anxious all the time. You're kind of wondering who's doing what. You don't really have a grounded peace and a centered fire and power to you. You really don't. And so just look at the fruit of whatever girl is talking on social media, whatever guy is talking on social media. Look at the fruit of their life from a spiritual, real perspective, like real fruit. I'm not talking about Lambos and Chanel bags and shit like that. I'm talking about, do they really have a grounded sense of peace in their life? And if you look at the people like that, like, let's just call them out: Joe Hudson, Simon Sinek, Brené Brown, Mel Robbins, right? These are actual people that, from what we know, should probably be looked up to. Look at their lives: married, children, families. If they're not, they're still deeply rooted in peace, and I think that everything is flashy and social media has made it that way. And that's why I think things like the church are so important, because they do at least lay down some laws of value systems and care. Maybe you don't agree with the patriarchal aspect of it, but what I'm saying is we need to have an influence onto our children in this younger generation of things that actually fucking matter. Because I can tell you right now, being born and raised in Vegas, hanging out with multiple billionaires, being in multiple rooms with millions, billions of dollars, none of that shit really matters. At the end of the day, you really just want to be with the people you love, have a coffee in the morning with the person you love. Sure, it's all great to have all the cool things. I want all the cool things still. I want to make more money and get more cool shit. But it's the icing on the cake. It's not the cake.
Completely agree, and I think that's why it's so important that children don't have access to social media. Like because it's my job, I'm on it and I'm getting inspiration for other people, but I have to also make sure like I'm aware of how much I'm actually on my phone because it's not good for me. It prevents me from falling asleep sometimes. Like I want to be out in nature more. That's one of the reasons why I'm excited to start traveling again, especially being in Mexico City and Colombia and outside of the US where I'm just walking outside more. I'm literally walking as my transportation and connecting with people on a daily basis everywhere, getting street food and stuff. But in this country, we're so disconnected. And it's my goal at some point, like whether I end up having kids or not, like I'm happiest when I'm picking up my nephews from daycare. And I sent you a video, my nephew was just so happy to see me. And that's what life is all about. He doesn't care about
Totally.
money or anything else. He cares about quality time. So, it's been such a grounding and humbling experience to have nephews to be able to have a hand in raising and shaping their worldview. And I feel like it's a responsibility for me to teach them and to help them emotionally regulate from a young age because I can see how their brains are forming. I can see how they're developing language and they're so smart. They're only basically 2 and 3 years old, but they absorb everything. So it's just like, you want to make the world a better place for them. You want to protect them. You want to teach them right from the very beginning so they don't end up having to go through years of therapy later on down the line. But those are what really matters. And like you were saying, if you can't truly make a change about all the things that are happening in the world, then don't spend your energy on it. But I can truly make a change in the lives of my nephews, and I feel very grateful to do that. So I try to spend as much time with them as possible.
I love that because there was like children are built in purpose. It's part of the ecosystem, right? We have children, you automatically have a purpose. It starts with your wife or your husband, then it starts with your child. And there was a guy, I don't remember who he was, you might remember, millionaire, but like super wealthy, super successful. And he said, I used to have this play the status game. He goes, and once I had kids, The only status that mattered to me was what they thought. I didn't give a shit about anybody else thought. And I think another thing, because me and you have such exposure, like, listen, I've worked with NBA players, MLB players. I know many UFC fighters personally. I know plenty of celebrities growing up in Vegas. I know a lot of these influencers, had dinners with Wes Watson, Alex Jeffries, know these guys, and you meet them and you realize like most of it's all bullshit. Number one, all the influencer stuff, like you're full of shit. They're not even the type of people that you think they are. Number one. And number two is you only see what they want you to see. So you've developed and curated a picture that is completely and totally false. So I lost track of what I was going to say, but that's kind of it, and I just think that it's very important to realize that they're just humans. I work with these people. I've worked with billionaires. It's a fact. I work with race car drivers. That's a fact. I work with Michelin star chefs. They're all going through the same exact thing as the $50,000 a year soccer mom. Like it's just what it is. And so you realize like you put all these people on pedestals and then Instagram is fake anyways. Come on. We know half these influencers are doing that. And you're just like, get the fuck out. Like you know what I'm saying? So being grounded in what matters is what the world needs to come back to. And unfortunately, it's really hard to do that when all you're seeing is this hype on screen, and me and you even do it because we have to. It's part of it. People want to see the lifestyle. They want to see what we do. They want to see the nice apartment I'm in right now. Like, oh, that's a real background. Yep. That's a real background. Like it's, they want to see, oh, they got a cool apartment. No, they're eating it. Well, you are fine dining all the time. Like I used to. I'm more of a introvert now, but yeah, they want to see all that, but it's not really reality.
Exactly. Yeah, I think it's just finding that balance, and as long as the North Star is the same and being authentic, and that's something that I've really made the intention and effort to continue to do is just be authentic and be me and let people see who I really am and what my opinions are. And if they don't like it, they don't like it. And they want to talk shit, they're gonna do that. But at the end of the day, I'm still gonna keep going because I know that my mission, your mission, we're actually trying to do something positive for the world and inspire people and show them that entrepreneurship is within reach. And like I posted the other day, we all have access to the same information now with ChatGPT and the internet. There's no excuse anymore. There's no real barriers. So if somebody wants to do what I'm doing and start a podcast, do what you're doing and start a coaching business, they should be able to do that. And hopefully we can inspire them and show them those steps.
Yeah, because it always comes back to the human. It's like me working with founders. 99% of the time, the founder is the bottleneck internally. It's not all the other stuff. All the stuff is out there. We can all do it. What I will say, though, I think is very important is I've got friends that will watch this podcast and be like, they're going to hate you. And I've got a podcast I just did like 2 days ago. You're like, hate that fucking guy. And so my point in that is realizing that everyone deserves a voice. We're all supposed to coexist and we don't have to. Dude, me and you argue a lot. We don't agree on everything, but it doesn't change the fact that we agree on values for the most part, And so I just want to encourage people to be a little bit more understanding and have a little bit more compassion. But at the same time, because I know I talk in dichotomies, is hold a very high standard and protect your energy and don't be around things that aren't what you agree with. I do agree with that, but man, like, is it a hill to die on? I got my buddy that owns a flip flop company that I'm going to do that podcast. I don't know what I've got to edit out of it. I mean, he's like, ex-convict, like if you threw him in Iraq right now, he'd probably just kill everybody for fun. But I'm not even joking. But this is the ability to be able to be open to different human beings, I think is what we need more of. Otherwise, you're just going to have this click over here and this click over here, and no one's going to coexist happily. And I think it's cool to have clicks. I believe in clicks. Like these people want to be with their people. I want to be with my people, but can we coexist and like each other and be understanding of each other's opinions and views? Because if not, you develop totalitarian dictatorships,
Hear other opinions. I want to hear when you disagree with me. I don't want to just be surrounded by yes people that are like, yes, you're right. Everything you did was right. No, like I know I'm wrong sometimes, but I'm a human being and I
No, you're
want
not. You're always right, Mel. You know that. You're Korean. You are always right.
you're right.
Exactly.
I that's why I love having friends like you who have the courage and the ability to just tell me like, "Hey, I didn't agree with this and I don't think that was the right decision." And like I'm going to listen to it. I'm not going to be like, "Oh, fuck you for disagreeing with me." Like
But you got to remember, you got to give yourself credit there. I can do that with you because you're not going to fucking lose your mind and not talk to me for 3 days. There's even been days I could tell you were annoyed and maybe we didn't talk for a few days and then we come back and it's like, but it doesn't matter. And I think, Jara, Jara, she's another friend like that. That's a female that we don't agree on everything as well. But And maybe she takes a couple days or I take a couple days or just get over each other for a week. But then you come back and you're like, oh yeah, this is like we agree way more than we don't agree. And it's okay. We're human.
Yeah, and just
So
because we don't agree doesn't mean I don't wanna hear it. I do wanna hear it. I wanna hear your opinions, and I wanna know because
because I'm
maybe
right.
change my perspective. Maybe it will change my perspective for the better, and it could be a learning and growing moment for me. But at the end of the day, like, that's I think it is important to have friends from all walks of life and to just teach you different things, for the sake of learning.
I agree 100%. And I will just say this is why you have to vet your friendships acutely would be the proper word, carefully,
Yeah,
because if you can't be like that, you're good. This is a prime example, right? We're not married or anything, but like imagine if it was typical, like, oh fuck no, and I never talked to her again, and we destroy a whole friendship. It's like that's what I feel like people do with relationships. Like they're just we're not perfect. Like give us some grace. I have made more mistakes and betrayed myself more times than I would love to not admit. I do not want to admit that, but it's the truth. And it's just reality. Like I think, yeah, I just wish people could just be a bit more human. One thing that I do pride myself on, and actually my ex was one person that really, as much as she kind of fucked me in the end, she said something that was really powerful. And she would always tell me, she's like, "You are literally the best man I know." And she's like, "We need more humans like you on this planet." And it helped with my confidence and knowing who I was. But my point in that is like, I pride myself on just being someone who genuinely cares about people that can't do anything for me just for the sake of them being humans. And I highly implore people to just, what does the Dalai Lama say? You want to be happy? Stop thinking about yourself.
exactly.
Right. So, yeah.
Love that. I think that's a great place to wrap this up, but I'm so glad we
Awesome.
got to do this again. I'm sure we'll do it again in another 6 to 12 months, but thank you so
Yep.
much.
Yeah. And I'll have you on mine as well.
And for everyone else, thank you for tuning in and tune to the next episode of the Breakthrough Blueprint.